Hi, everyone. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. Hi, Kimmer. Welcome back. Nice to see you. Hi, everyone else that's here. I thought about coming on. I wasn't going to come on. I was on a staycation, so that's where I disappeared to. I don't often go away on a vacation, but I like staycations a little better because you don't go away and come back all tired, and it's not as hard as on the body. I can't really do the go away vacations anymore myself. I was wondering if you were going to cover this. Yeah, I was. Um, I'm. I hate to use the words excited, but I'm a little excited that they covered this and they're actually reaching out to Daniel. They're wanting to make contact with him and they're wanting to, have discussions with him. So, did you watch it, Kimmer? With the behavior panel? Did you watch that? It hasn't been out too long yet, but we're going to take a look at it anyway. So, I doubt it. I don't think he will either. I would be very surprised if he did, to be honest. You watched it, okay. I would be very surprised. So, I do see there's other people here if you wanna weigh in if you've seen it or not, because we are gonna go over to it. And I'm just curious if, where everybody's at, if you've seen it, if you even know who the behavior panel is. If you don't, you really should know who they are. They are the cream of the crop when it comes to behavior, analyzing behavior, and they've hit on a lot of things that um, you know I I think they side with Daniel. I don't. My opinion differs a little there, especially Chase. I especially think Chase doesn't. Um, I I kind of think they're stumped with the fact that he has a different type of personality, which they touched on, and I agree because that's how I feel about Daniel as well. That he's hard to read and that there's you know, some intellectual things going on there with him that makes it harder for him to read. And but the thing is that they do not know that we know, with everything that we've been watching, if everybody has, that he lies. He lies. There's things in that interview that they would to them would believe to be the truth, that whereas us, knowing all the things that Daniel has said that weren't true, and we're also going to look at some text messages there as well, and point out some of those things. So, some of those things that we know about Daniel, that we know, he said yes to this and then says no, and then, says no to this and then says yes. So, we know that he lies, but they don't know that because they're not watching what we're watching. And so for anybody watching me right now who doesn't know what the heck Kimmer and I are talking about, is that two kids, Lily and Jack Sullivan, who you would have seen on the thumbnail, have gone missing and are still missing. And they went missing on May 2nd of this year, from Pictou County, Nova Scotia, which is where I'm from. They do not live far at all from where I live. Well, from where they went missing, I do not live far from at all. Um, I, you know, uh, it, it's devastating to all of us here in the community that there's two small children missing, and that there's such craziness surrounding this whole thing. But I have to say, being from here and looking back at some other cases and things that have happened here in Pictou County, not shocking. And for example, um, we had someone who went missing here um, a while back. Her name was Amber Kerwin, and it's similar to this in the sense that she went missing, and for quite some time, nobody knew where she was. Everybody was blaming her boyfriend. Um, but then it ended up that it soon became realized that it was somebody else here in the community who actually was just released from prison for unaliving a taxi driver when he was 15 years old, and in a very, very horrible way. Uh, through I don't know how I can say this without YouTube picking up on it, but if you're familiar with the JonBenet case, what was done to her um, around her neck, same way, um, with the taxi driver in the front and from behind, someone behind him, and to the point where it actually cut through. I mean, it was horrible. And they let him out of prison, and then he went on to kidnap this young girl. She was, I think, 19, 20, around there, and unalived her. But for the longest time, very similar to this situation, this individual had somebody who would speak up for him, just as Darewood is doing in this case with Daniel. So not shocking at all to me from being here. And there's been other cases too that I can tell you where the same thing went on. So that went on for the longest time, and it was the same thing. She went online and she went to whatever platform was, discussing the case, and would stick up for him, and this isn't true because of that and that, and would be, putting this story out there that how it couldn't be true, and blah, blah, blah. It's the very same thing as what Darewood's doing. And, and I know that's not his real name. I actually know who he is because I'm from here. I grew up in Trenton and I live in Stellarton. And I worked at Tim Hortons years ago before I became a nurse when I was very young. And like when I first had my very first apartment. So from like 19 to early 20s. Well, before even then, Tim Hortons, I worked at the local convenience store. So when you're working in those places in a small place, you know who everybody is, and you know who's trouble and who isn't, and who's the con man and who's the nice man and who's the pervert, and, and so on and so on and so on. But anyways, so where was I going with that? Oh yeah, with Amber Curd. So that went on for the longest time, this whole thing, and this one standing up for him. And anyways, and then people just got fed up with it because everyone knew that it was quite obvious this individual, because there was more and more coming out that was like, the light bulb was going off. Oh, okay, yeah, it's, obviously this is what happened. And finally the police arrested him, and when they arrested him, he had rugs on him, he had poo-poos, he had everything that a person that just come out of prison on probation should not have, plus being thought of as someone who kidnapped this girl and possibly unalived her, because they hadn't found her yet up to that point. They did eventually find her out by where he grew up as a child, actually out on the same side of the county as where Lily and Jack went missing. Not in the exact same area, but on that side of the county. So I've seen this before, and that's just one time. I've seen it before around here as well in other cases, so it's not like it's an uncommon thing, um, for this to happen, and I I I don't know if he believes what he's saying. To me, it doesn't matter. I don't feel any of that is accurate at all. Um, so, yes, they didn't know everything exactly, Kimmer. They really don't know. I think if they knew that he actually is proven to be a liar, which I'm not making that up. Nobody's making it up. It's because of his own statements and him saying one thing and then saying another, and then the back and forth. He's doing that himself. The behavior panel is excellent. Yes, I do too. I've watched them for years. They are the best of the best, that's for sure. Darren says he doesn't have a home now after speaking up, and I'm sure you heard that. I heard that, and I I would be very cautious of anything that he says. Um, I this is a man that first started off saying how, oh, he knows everyone in the county and he's good friends with everybody and he has great relationship, and that he was at some rich person's house sitting back having a drink and blah 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 blah. But and he has children, and he has all his buddies at Tim Hortons that he's chumming with. So I highly doubt that he's homeless. So be very cautious of anything like that being said, and any type of nobody should ever be making money off this. So, it just, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but, Darren's homeless and now he needs a GoFundMe or, and I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying be cautious of those things, right? Because these things happen, and there's always the con man and the con woman in the any area when these things go on. So you have to be very cautious. I truly feel both Daniel and Malaya's families are dysfunctional. I'm trying to say it. I'm trying to say it POI nicely. Yes. I got it. Yes, I heard him say all that. Yeah, I'm just not even paying attention to that stuff. It's just foolishness. It's the same foolishness that took place with the Amber Kerwin unaliving. It's just foolishness, and I'm just not paying attention to it. Um, what I want to pay attention to, and I said right from the beginning, is what's coming from both Daniel and Malaya. But at the time, Malaya wasn't, Malaya had one interview, and um, and that was it. But she, there has been some text messages there with on a criming shame, and we're gonna go over those as well. And I agree with you. I agree with you about the where was that? Yes, about the dysfunctional. Yeah, and it's I have to be honest. I'm from here. There's a lot of dysfunctional families around here. There's a lot of alcoholism. There's a lot of abuse. So, and, I've always, it's one of the, another one of the reasons why I wanted to start doing this, because I want to understand why. Like, why do these things happen? And I mean, not just someone like Travis Decker unaliving his 3 children, just why so much dysfunction and abuse and, um, and now something like this happening in our community where I live. You know, and I mean, maybe those children are in the woods. I find it very hard to believe. And now we're coming into some nice weather, and you would think some smells would probably start making their way. I don't know, but it just seems very, very unlikely at this time that they are in those woods. Yes, that's why I wanted to, yeah, exactly. You wanna try to say it politely, and I get it. I do think you're right on that for sure, But, um, for all the mudslinging that Daniel's doing towards poor Malaya, um, I I think she, to me, comes off to be more functional than he does. And that's kinda why I like some of the stuff they touched on the behavior panel, um, because always kinda got that feeling that there's a something off with Daniel. There's some intellectual something going on there, and just sense, like that's why I had said there in one of my videos about him possibly going into, like, just losing his crap and going into a rage. Like, I feel like there's something there with him that's off. Hi. Hello, Lord Kiss Freak, another Canadian. From I know you're French. I know you're French, but I don't think you live in Quebec, right? I think you're in Ontario. Could I be wrong? Could I be right? I remember you drive a great big giant truck, I know that. And we're just touching on the case, Northern Ontario, yeah. That's pretty good that I remembered all of that because I don't have a good short-term memory. We're just touching on the Jack and Lily case. You had helped at first put that very first video that I put out, and then after that, holy cow, everything just went crazy. It got picked up by all the big channels, and now the whole world's involved. Um, do you truly feel the RCMP are doing a good job, Nova? Well, uh, I'm leery because of things that have happened before, like the whole Portapic thing that has happened here in Nova Scotia is gonna stick with, all of us for a very long time, and, um, and just so it's hard to when something like that happens, it's hard to just throw your trust. And I don't, and I'm like that anyways. I'm never a 100% trusting person with just anybody. That's just the way I am, and I've raised my kids to be that way. I believe in questioning things and asking questions, and you know, like if it was if these were my kids when my kids were small, I would have no trust that anybody's doing anything right. Like, I remember listening to Jason Eeler and him saying the one thing that is just drives him to so much insanity is that in his mind, he keeps thinking like, "But are they doing this? Are they doing that? Did they do this? Are they doing this correctly?" And that's the way I would be. I would have no trust, like, because how do you know? Like, how do you know? And I've worked in healthcare and I've seen where I've thought, that other nurse would have done this because that's how it should be done, or you're supposed to do that. And it's not. It's that person's half-arsed and they're not doing their job correctly or whatever. So we know that those things happen and that not everybody's doing everything the way they should. But I would really hate to think that in this case, something like this, that they wouldn't have the best of the best on that, the person that's gonna work themselves to the bone to do, to find these children or to find out what happened. Yeah, and so you're saying I don't respectfully, and I can respect your opinion, and, yeah, it's been over 7 weeks now, yeah, and sometimes it takes a long time. So, the case of, her mother was Penny Boudreau, and it was also in Nova Scotia in the Valley, and, Clarissa, her daughter, um, it took a lot longer than 7 weeks to get her mom, who did unalive her, and they got her. They did the Mr. Big thing. Um, yes, I would doubt, yeah. Um, Yeah. Oh my God. How could you not? How could you not? Right. I think that Daniel Malaya know what happened to the kids. Yeah. A lot of people think both of them know. Yeah. I believe Daniel knows, but I'm not on board with Malaya yet. Yet. And that's probably I say yet because that obviously could change. It could only be because she's remaining quiet, which, I have in my opinions of why she's staying quiet, and I don't think it's because she's trying to protect herself. Well, I mean, in a sense, I think it may have something to do with part of the investigation is that she has to stay quiet and allows, Daniel to just talk, 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 and dig a hole. And sometimes, lots of times, that works. And he is talking and he is digging himself a hole. Why would she go in hiding? So, yeah. So I was saying that just at the same time as you were putting that up there. So, like, that's my thoughts on that is that that's part of the investigation that she had to and the baby. And because he wasn't even allowed to see the baby for the longest time. Now he says he just had a first visitation with the baby, but we don't even know if that's true because everything so far that he said has not everything, but he's been caught in so many lies up to this point that it's just so ridiculous. I mean, to for them to have found Lily's blanket in the woods and then they come and now mind you, they're looking for a missing child and this is either the first or second day. The mom was still there when they found the blanket. So it was either the first or the second day that they found the blanket because she left on the second day. And he lied and said, no, that wasn't her blanket. Like, why would you do that? Why? Like, there's no reason on this earth. You're literally looking for the children. And this is something that's going to lead you to the children. And he lies and says, no, that's not hers. That just doesn't make sense. Hi, Rudy. So much just doesn't make sense. Exactly. So I mean, we know he lies. And then it was, Malaya in her interview says, she got up and said to Daniel, "Do you hear the kids?" And I believe her. I believe that's how it went. But now you have Daniel in chat saying it was him that woke up and he was the one that said to her, "Do you hear the kids?" Like, and that's why I was saying with Daniel, and that's why I'm saying I agree with the interview panel, or sorry, the behavior panel, because there's something intellectually off with him because he repeats what other people say. And that people who do that, people who don't know what to say themselves because it sounds normal, so then they copy what other people say. There's something wrong going on upstairs. Um, and I found that before he even stated that, he's been doing that with other stuff. Like he's taking other things that people are saying and then he's saying it himself instead of just saying what he should be saying. Which probably because is what he should be saying is not good. Um, but that's one thing I've noticed with him. So let's go over to the behavior panel and check out what they have to say. So this was just on today. I actually was watching it as it was live. So I think that was like maybe 2 or 3 hours ago. Maybe longer, God knows with me and time.
Today we're going to talk about Daniel Martell. Now, there are 2 little children missing in Nova Scotia.
If there's any issues with the audio, guys, just let me know. I have it up as loud as I can, and their audio is pretty good, so hopefully no
And
issues.
he's their stepfather. Greg, tell us about the videos we're going to watch.
Yeah, Canadian siblings Lily Sullivan and Jack Sullivan, 6 and 4, disappeared from their rural home in Nova Scotia on May 2nd. There's been a lot of searches, a lot of things going on. This guy's done a lot of interviews in front of the camera, many of them very small and very short. This is about a 12-minute video we're going to watch that's been cut up into pieces with the pertinent pieces here.
It's been 6 weeks now since you've seen Lily and Jack. I just want to ask, how are you holding up?
It's been a long 6 weeks. I know that everybody basically in the world at this point is always wanting to know like what happened. It's been from sadness to anger at this point. And I know the RCMP and major crimes are working around the clock trying to piece everything together. And I'm grateful for that. But it always leaves the question, 6 weeks has gone by. And we know at this point they're not in the woods. And where are they?
Did you feel in the beginning that they suspected you?
Of course. The stepfather was always a prime suspect right off the beginning.
You felt that from the beginning?
Yeah.
But you don't feel that now?
No, I don't feel that at all. I asked for the lie detector exam, the polygraph exam. I gave them my phone. I told them I, do drug tests because there's a lot of rumors online about a drug party. Mm-hmm. I know the person that said those rumors, and it was just to take the heat off themselves.
Was there any kind of party?
No.
Was there any kind of gathering that someone might have thought was a party?
No.
There were no people at the house?
No, not the night before.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so kind of grand scheme of things, let's start off with this because it runs through the whole of it. There is quite a low energy level from this person, and there's kids missing, and you might say to yourself, well, hang on, where's the urgency around this? Where's the energy for it? But knowing something of Nova Scotia and the culture and the energy levels there, my wife's family are all of that side of the family from back in Nova Scotia. And he is from a very small area of Nova Scotia, and it is very low key. It's very slow. It's very, very gentle, very, very lovely, pleasant people, but slow and gentle. Even in their biggest city, it's slow and it's gentle.
I think that's funny because I don't agree and I'm from here.
So that energy level doesn't surprise me in this particularly sadness to anger, he says. And so that's potentially a grief cycle, or at least he names that very, very well. The frustration, the irritation, the anxiety that can come with the anger part of that grief cycle. So that stacks up as a positive for him. He may well be in grief, and he's describing that. There's some lip compressions. The RCMP and major crimes are working around the clock. Lip compression on that, potentially withheld opinion about that. And 6 weeks have gone by, and there's some lip compression around that. So is he holding back a viewpoint maybe on this is taking too long, they're not doing enough? It's a possibility there, especially because if he has moved from sadness to anger, that could suggest a frustration, an irritation with how slowly this might be going. And again, in his favor, he's looking for answers somewhat, and he's happy to get himself checked out with this polygraph that they talk about. So he's not saying that, well, he's done it. He's got that done. So he's getting involved. He's relatively positive about getting involved. So in many ways, there's a lot going for him on this one. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I actually agree. He's calm. His ankles are crossed. And Mark actually taught me this. We were at a bar, I think, when you taught me this. which makes it harder to stand. And him getting in a position where it's harder to stand up means that there's likely more comfort there. His blink rate through the whole clip here is steady. There's some small fidgeting. It's probably more likely due to cameras than guilt. There's some protein buildup in the mouth with some white stuff you'll see in his lips. Greg's gonna definitely talk about this. Greg worked at the world's #1 stress laboratory, and there's some protein there. But people might see the hands on his lap as genital protection. It's not. When we call those things out, it's important to note the first C of the 5 C's, which is change. His behavior is essentially baseline here. In this position, we don't also see wrist protection or hand tightness or rigidity in the lower body. So the legs are calm and relaxed. Keep in mind, we're analyzing his responses to specific questions here. Somebody who's guilty isn't going to just off gas a bunch of behavior regardless of the situation. There are a few factors that matter in whether we're going to see relevant behavior in a situation. So there's essentially 7 things that matter if we're going to see something relevant. So we have perceived stakes, how the person sees the stakes, the intent of the question, maybe it's trap or a neutral one or rapport building. There's some personal relevance, which would be the 3rd. The 4th would be social pressure. And 5th is expectation of judgment. 6 would be narrative control, like who's steering the conversation. 7 would be timing. We're seeing something big in timing, which is we might see early self-monitoring versus a lot of late stage fatigue and leakage there. And we're not seeing a lot of that. So looks pretty good here. The mainstream media is not broken at all. It is functioning exactly as it was designed. It exists to manipulate you, to divide you, to feed
Eyes, ringing hands.
going on. Scott, what do you got?
All right. When I see something like this, the first thing I think of when I look at pretty much anything is what's missing. And what's missing from here is grief, sadness, stress, the widened eyes, deep breathing, like scanning around the room, teary eyes, ringing hands, concern in the brow, not being able to talk about the children without crying, a plea for help to find the children, an adrenaline spike when panic sets in when he realizes again what's happening. We're not seeing that. The things we are seeing is he's relaxed. This cat is laid back. He leaned back in the chair. His eyes are really clear. So is his voice. He doesn't look disheveled. He doesn't look worried. There's no body language or behavior here that tells us this person is under a tremendous amount of stress. He looks.
And this is where I feel like, because there's something intellectually different about Daniel, that those things are not there. And him being so relaxed and things that are missing. And everybody keeps saying, like, with him, it's so confusing because he can sit there and talk like that on the media, but then yet we know he's a liar because he keeps lying and lying. And he's proven himself to be a liar. And that's not me, in my opinion, making that up. That's what he's himself, in different statements, has told different stories. And the story keeps changing and changing. So if you're telling the truth, whether you have an intellectual difficulty or anything like that, the truth still stays the same, always. But now would his cues be off and things be off if he's on some type of autism spectrum, or there's something intellectually going on? Yes, that would be different and causing confusion compared to watching your typical person, speaking. Yeah, and there was something else there that he said too, but I can't remember what it was.
He may be psychologically, but for some reason it's not showing.
Right.
But it's not showing if he is. which doesn't mean he's either innocent or guilty at this point. You just see that and go, that's what's missing, and here's what we're seeing. So at the beginning, we're seeing him dapping a little bit with that thumb on his hand like that. Not a whole lot. That's how he's getting rid of some of that built up stress and tension. And then sometimes, depending on what's happening, like when he says it's been a long 6 weeks, that's when his legs tighten up a little bit and his feet kind of scooch around a little bit. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. So that suggests discomfort there. Now, something's odd to me when he says everybody basically in the world at this point wanted to know what happened, like it's over and already happened.
Exactly.
So I think he sees that whatever is going on has already happened and is complete part of it, which would be the kids are not with us anymore. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. It looks like he's accepted that. And then he's the one that asked for the polygraph test for the lie detector test. That doesn't happen that often. The person going in doesn't say, hey, give me a lie detector test. Here's my phone. Here's all my stuff. So that's a lot. I'll get a little while later. And you can see it as one way. So that's somebody that's guilty because they want to go ahead and get that over with and get all that stuff started. That's one way to look at that stuff. But then there's that smiling. Well, when she asked about a party being in his house the night before, he says it didn't happen that night. And we see a little bit of smile on his face. So I don't think that's duper's delight in there. I think a lot of people may think that might be, but I don't think that's what it is because it didn't show up like it usually does when we see duper's delight. So this one's really different for me. It's really we're seeing things
it didn't show up as it should.
Because quite often. Yeah. So, oh man, Greg, what do you got?
A few things. Chase, I think I'll start off by talking about the protein buildup. It's because you mentioned it. Yeah, when we grab people, when you're pushing these people through the level of stress we do at SEER, you'll see their bodies start to scavenge all their mucous membranes, and you see protein buildup in the corners of their mouth. That's from high duress. You don't see it very often in your life. Likely, most people will never see it, but it's really common in people that are going through that whole program. So we'd see it build up as indicators of stress. Another one, Mark, I'm going to jump ahead into pieces back and forth that tie off to what you guys are talking about. I agree with you. I see frustration. And where I see that frustration is when he's asked about being a suspect. Agitation rises. And what we see is respiration change. Listen to it. You can hear it. Concern or frustration, something in his brow right there. It's knotted right here. He doesn't use his brow a lot, but right in these muscles, you can see a lot. But there's no grief in the brow. There's no grief in the chin. So that tells me it's probably more like frustration. And then he withdraws his lips like that. And he's either moistening his lips for appearance or it's a request for approval of some kind. It doesn't show stress. His pupils don't show any dilation. His respiration doesn't go through the roof, but his breathing changes when he's asked that one question. He also chaffs. This is a good indicator. When a person chaffs as part of their nature and tells you about something that happened, but doesn't try to redirect the conversation. He's just rattling off things that happened. The one piece that I wish would have been explored a little bit is that not last night, not the night before, because that's an abandoned statement that there's nothing after that tied to this question. So the reason I cut the video there is because it's like, that's frustrating as hell. There's another thing, Chase, you talk about 7. There's a lens that all those 7 are taken through, and we have to all be careful. We all are. We talk about this all the time. We look for patterns, not how we feel. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is assuming the person sitting across the table from you feels the same way you do, or understands things the same way you do, or has the right neurological programming. I think we may have something here that I'll show you why as we go through, but I think we may have a divergent neurotype here. And I think that's part of the reason, not the slow speaking and all that, but we're going to see other really good indicators from people I've worked with in the past. But he does have no illustrators. He's locked down. He's crossed, but it's consistent. We think of that as a baseline. I think he came here with some talking points, and we can look for that when he delivers those because he's awkward in the way he does it. He goes to a slow cadence. At this point, 6 weeks have gone by, followed by lip compression. I think that's where the frustration starts, Mark. And then we know they're not in the woods. And where are they? That's a list of things. You don't string things together with and. You would say so if it was a normal conversation, which is why I think he came here to say certain things. We'll pay attention to see if we see more of that. But at the end of the day, guys, I don't see a lot of anything I would call deception. We talk about pupil dilation. We talk about stress. So stress can come from lots of things. Stress can lead up to going in there. And many of you people that are watching, you have trouble with public speaking or a test or something else. And you ramp that stress up, even though it's not really caused by the event, it's caused by apprehension going into it. Could be the same thing here. We could see all that stress from this. We could also see stress from an altercation with family. We can't read that. But what we don't see here is a lot of reaction. We don't see pupil dilation, a lot of blink rate, eye lock, any of that. It looks normal cadence, normal speech.
And you know what else? His sentences aren't structured for prepared answers. So I agree with you on that.
Here's an interesting one for you guys. Sadie and I Sadie has a great channel, guys. If you haven't gone there, go check out Sadie's channel. And we were talking one day, and there was a single short interview with this guy where I was suspicious of him, really suspicious of him. This video is much different than what you see in that first interview with him. So it's always good to get long form so we get more input. But go check Sadie's channel out and see what she's got there.
Where do you look at? Where is it?
Sadie, Prime Minister Behavior on YouTube.
Okay.
And I did a video touching on Sadie's, him and Sadie as well. I kept that up there to remind me. So Kimber says, I think down Easters are more laid back. My family is from Newfoundland. I kind of see what he means. And I agree with that. Now, I've lived in PEI. I've lived in New Brunswick. I've spent time on the border of Quebec. I've lived in Amherst, Nova Scotia. And and then I came back to Pictou County. And so, yeah, I do agree with that, with our provinces here, but in particular, Pictou County, and having lived outside of Pictou County and other areas in the Maritime provinces here, the Atlantic provinces, there's a big difference here in Pictou County. Excuse me. When he was saying about the slowness and the laid back and and there's a difference here in Pictou County. I can tell you that, about the friendliness and the more laid back and the slow and all that. There is a difference.
It's been 6 weeks now since you've seen Lily and Jack. I just want to ask, how are you holding up?
It's been a long 6 weeks. I know that everybody basically in the world at this point is always wanting to know what happened. It's been from sadness to anger at this point. And I know the RCMP and major crimes are working around the clock trying to piece everything together, and I'm grateful for that. But it always leaves the question, 6 weeks has gone by, and we know at this point they're not in the woods. And where are they?
Did you feel in the beginning that they suspected you?
Of course. The stepfather was always a prime suspect right off the beginning.
You felt that from the beginning?
Yeah.
But you don't feel that now?
No, I don't feel that at all. I asked for the lie detector exam, the polygraph exam. I gave them my phone. I told them I do drug tests because there's a lot of rumors online about a drug party. Mm-hmm. I know the person that said those rumors, and it was just to take the heat off themselves.
Was there any kind of party?
No.
Was there any kind of gathering that someone might have thought was a party?
No.
There were no people at the house?
No, not the night before.
Okay, you mentioned you offered to take a polygraph test.
Yeah.
Did the RCMP take you up on that?
Yes, it did.
And how did that unfold?
That unfolded in my favor. They obviously know I wasn't lying about anything.
So they said, "Yep, great, thank you. Come in for a polygraph test."
Yeah, it took a little while to set up. And
when did you do that test?
I don't know the exact date, but that would be at least 3 weeks ago, probably.
So roughly 3 weeks after the disappearance.
Yeah.
And I think most Canadians wouldn't have any idea what's involved with that. Can you describe the process? You go in and just tell us right from the start.
We go in, sit down in a big comfy chair, and they have multiple sensory pads. You have them underneath your forearms, you have them underneath your butt, and you have them underneath your feet with your shoes off. You have a sweat gland on one finger. You have a measuring instrument for blood flow that goes in and out of your hand. And you have a cuff on your arm for blood pressure to measure your pulse.
Were you nervous?
Yeah, I was extremely nervous. Especially with the first question I asked you, did you kill Lilly&Jack?
That was the first question I asked you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What went through your mind when someone's asking you that question so point blank like that?
Your mind has a massive release of chemicals, I guess you would call them. Just, it's like your stress levels just astronomically through the roof, and your body doesn't know what to do, because it's not every day the way you're hooked up to machines in an interrogation room where someone asks you questions like that.
What other kinds of questions did they ask you?
All the questions pertain to the death of Lilly&Jack. Are you accessory to the murder of Lilly&Jack? They were all.
So all of the questions assumed that the children are no longer alive?
Yeah.
There were no questions at all about, did you take them somewhere? Could
No.
they be somewhere?
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So we talk a lot about eye movement, eye accessing cues, and about internal dialogue. This is one of the single best internal dialogue indicators I've seen. When we say that, we typically mean a person's looking down into their left. When he's asked the question about the date, watch him trying to figure out, okay, and I can't tell you what he's thinking, but that was the day I went here and here and here. And so he comes up with a date as he's figuring that out. He's rifling likely through a series of events that would tie it back for him. That we see in a lot of people when we ask a hard question that they should know the answer to, where were you Tuesday? And they go, that's a different story. This is about a person who's trying to give you real facts. This is the beginning of when I start to say, this guy may be neurodivergent. You ask a hard question, there's only a way that he knows how to process the data, and he's going to hand it back to you in a different way than you perceive it, which means you need to question him very differently. And we're going to see, while this woman does a pretty good job of questioning, there's some missed opportunity there because she's not taking into account how this thing works.
Yeah, and I agree with what he's saying there, and that's my thoughts on Daniel as well, that there's a different way that he, you know, has to be asked questions, because he has a different way of thinking, and it's very obvious. That's very obvious. That's why, to all of us looking in, it's confusing. But like I said, I go back to the lying. No matter what, there's no reason for things to change. There's no reason for the story to change. And it's constant, it's constant. It's habitual. It's so that there's something wrong there. And it's too bad that these guys didn't know that about him. And maybe if Daniel does agree to go on the channel and speak with them, and you'll hear in the end that they're inviting him, they actually say it twice. They're reaching out to him. And if he does go on the channel, I'm sure they'll be doing more research on him. And one of their researchers, actually, Sadie, who has her channel, you heard them discuss it there, the Prime Minister of Behaviour, she's actually from Nova Scotia. She's from Halifax. And she's been following this case very closely.
The other interesting piece, he shows the same level of concern when he's asked that as he did when he was talking about being a suspect. A little bit of wrinkling in the brow, not a whole lot. Then he gets to how pure facts work and how the actual poly works. Watch his hands come up. He gets animated. Fact-based answers, lots of animation. complex concepts, not much animation, has to rifle through and figure out what it means, works through it. But you can see him raise his hand, start to illustrate. By that, we mean punctuating your brain's thoughts with your body, your hands, some item or that. And all those barriers, those closed up things we were talking about are gone. Remember, I say if you've got 5 pieces of body language, and those are gestures, illustrators, regulators, adapters, and barriers, those adapters and barriers start outnumbering the other stuff. It probably means you need to pay close attention. But this guy does it as a baseline, and I think we're okay. These concepts are giving him a hard time. That tongue jut out of his mouth at the first question that they ask him is a little awkward. It would cause me great concern if he didn't follow with it pretty quickly, because he holds his tongue out of his mouth, not just a rejection tongue jut. Desmond Morris said was baby's first no. She should have asked a follow-up question here, in my opinion, because when he said the first question was, did you kill them? He didn't answer it. I would have said, so did you? But that's not exactly the way most people behave. And here's how I know that the guy is not neurotypical or does not fit the standard model. When she asks him a question about how he felt, what does he say? I would say, I was angry. I was enraged. I felt hormones rolling over me. I felt chemicals rolling. He answers in a very literal way. And a lot of people who are not neurotypical will answer the question they think you're asking with no concept of what you really meant by the question. That's the beginning of it for me. He doesn't answer with indignation. I was madder than hell. He just says, hey, I had these chemicals. And then she says, then when she goes into the second question, she doesn't follow up either. So this guy gets past both of those, but I don't think he's doing anything out of the norm. I think it shows us insight into how his brain works, that he is going to answer a question a physical way rather than saying, I felt like this, I was angry, I've been this. And we'll find later the right question gets the right answer. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, really interesting, Greg. He seems very much in a world of things rather than feelings. I agree. He gets super animated on the polygraph stuff, and great illustrators. Like he's taking us through the whole thing. It's better the description of a polygraph than I've ever had from anybody, I think. You know, there's sensors I've not heard other people describe there. So it's like, oh wow, you really paid attention to this.
And
Seems
probably
like
asked questions because he knew names for things.
Totally. I think he was very involved with it, and very interested in it. You know, interested in the tech and the process, in the same way that he's interested in the process of sadness to anger, but we're not seeing the sadness or the anger, but he's interested in the process and the delineation between the things. So great baton gestures, which are the gestures that conduct along to the rhythm of the speech, as Scott would say, specific words and phrases, is a great way of saying it. We get good baton gestures from him. So his body and mind are very much in alignment. Hard to do that when you're making stuff up. And listen, why would he make this stuff up? So this is really a baseline of what kind of person have we got here? Somebody who
So see right there where he says, why would he make this stuff up? I'm pretty sure that's what he said. But we know from watching everything with Daniel that Daniel does say stuff that is not true. So they don't know that.
enjoys the tech, enjoys the world of things, isn't quite so much engaged in the world of feelings. Chase, to your point, no change in those feet, radically, still crossed. It would take him at least 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to get up, to, you know, from that. So he's pretty relaxed, he's pretty calm in this situation. And you might go, okay, but why be so relaxed and calm? The kids are missing. Well, 6 weeks into it, he's maybe more a things person than a feeling person. He's from Nova Scotia. That might have some aspect to it. So there could be, and we don't know his relationship with the kids. We know he has more kids, but we're kind of predicting, well, if you have kids.
So he's from Nova Scotia. So, but let's compare him to Justin. Oh my goodness. Oh, I just said his name earlier. Eeler. I'm so sorry. I can't remember his name right now. Brain fart. I said his name earlier. Compare that to him and he's from Nova Scotia, and I'm from Nova Scotia, and I can tell you I wouldn't be acting that way. If I had the opportunity to be on an interview like that, it would be more about the kids than me. That might be a small part of it, but it would be more about, getting people to help find the kids.
You always feel the maximum amount of emotion for all of the kids that you have any relationship with. Well, maybe not all of them, maybe none of them, perhaps. I don't know his relationship with the kids. We're just going, well, a good person, a good father would have the best possible relationship with all kids, but that's not life. This just doesn't work like that necessarily. I mean, great if you're a father and you do have a brilliant relationship with absolutely all of your kids within a blended family. Absolutely. But wow, tough, hard to do. Hard to do. Anybody who's in that kind of relationship situation, my hat is always off to them. I'm like, wow, that's real dedication. That's a real choice to go, I'm going to make the best of this relationship. That's not, you don't necessarily fall into that. That's a choice that you make. There's an eye change and a pause around, are you accessory? This is a question he was asked. Are you accessory to, then pause, eye change, the murder of Lily and Jay? So it feels like he has to reach and search for the framing that he was given. It doesn't seem like it's a framing that naturally comes to him. So even with that, I kind of feel that he's having to use somebody else's framing. I'm wondering whether he thinks the kids have been murdered in some way. That's a framing that he's been given. He has to search for it again and deliver it. He doesn't feel that comfortable.
And we know that's not so, because he's made it very clear at this point that he believes the kids are still alive, and he's spreading a story, him and Darewood, that they're alive and Malaya has had them kidnapped and hidden. So that we know that's not so.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Scott, what do you got on this one?
Let me ask you something first, Mark. If this guy's from Nova Scotia, what do you call him? Like, if you're from Ireland, you're Irish. This guy's what would you call him?
Nova Scotian. Nova Scotian.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there's any short. I can't think. Well, right, Nova Scotians. Hello, Nova Scotians. I know we have some out there. I definitely know we have quite a few out there actually who watch the show.
Yep.
I do.
Put down below whatever the shortened. For example, if you're from Newfoundland, you'd be a Newfie. If you're from Ontario, you're just an Ontarian. So I don't know whether there is a short one. Nothing comes to
we
mind.
can come up with
It's like
one.
beautiful country, man, from the pictures. Somewhere I'd love to live.
Yeah. Incredible. Yeah, beautiful.
All right. Okay, sorry. So when he says that unfolded in my favor, he lets out this big breath of relaxation. So that he's got some stress happening there, but I can't tell if that stress is from that bothering him, or it's the stress is building up because he's afraid that's been put on him, in other words. So then he says, yeah, I was extremely nervous. Then he smiles. I think that's a nervous smile. I don't think that's again, Duper's delight in there at all. And a lot of times we see it, like when he had that tongue come out, we see the tongue between the teeth, which it does happen a little bit there. That suggests that we got away with something. We see somebody do that. They've done a prank on somebody, or they've taken something, they're goofing with them. But here it's mostly his lips touching his tongue when he does that. So that could go a couple of different ways. It could go back to the Desmond Morris way that you were talking about, Greg. It could go, I'm getting away with something, but I don't feel like this cat is getting away with anything right now. Anyway, I don't feel like that. So that was really interesting for me. And it may just be a nervous tick of his because he's licking his lips and stuff all the time in here. So, but we do see a nostril flare. We hear fading facts after he tells her what the first question was, which was, did you kill the children? And then the yeah is the fading facts part. But it's not the fading facts part where you're being deceptive, where you give an entire answer and it keeps getting quieter toward the end like that. It's just that one word going, yeah, like that, because maybe as he's thinking about it, it bothers him. Not because he's being deceptive about it, but he hates that coming out of him agreeing with that or saying yes or addressing that situation at all. It probably bothers him. His blink rate's almost gone. And his eyes are real wide. And he does that classic looking at the person asking the question after he's answered to make sure they believe him. But I think it's to make sure he's being accepted or that the question landed right or the answer landed right with her. Not that he's waiting to see if she believes him or not. I'm starting to go with you, Greg, on this. You and Mark, I think there might be something up. Yeah, too. Maybe you too, Chase. But I think maybe everybody said that. There may be something up here from a personality type situation. So then when he talks about the release of chemicals and talking about his feelings and all that, you could look at that two ways and say, well, he's feeling the rush for his limbic system.
Yeah, because we know that he's habitual at lying. I would say he's looking to see if she believes him, but that's in my opinion. But that's just because I know the other stuff of all his contradictions and things that he's stated.
System. But then again, you could say, like you're saying, Greg, he's looking at it from an analytical position and saying, well, here's what happens when you're asked a question like that, or when I was. That's the way it was for me. Because he doesn't say brain, he says mind. He said he didn't say it happened in his brain, because we talk about the limbic system and things and chemicals and things. We talk about the brain, but he talks about the mind. Two completely different things. The mind housed in the brain.
He may not know.
Right. I was going to say, you assume that. One thing I've learned about people who have like somewhere on the autism spectrum is if you tell a story, they tell a story similar, and they're not trying to one up you. They're trying to internalize it and turn it into something, feed it back to you. So you can see they understand. Very different mindset than you.
See, I did not hear him say that before. But I said that in about 3 videos ago with him. Just stuff that I picked up on. Yes, he does.
Would know if nobody taught you that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll leave it with that. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I think this one clip is an example of us coming at this thing from 4 different angles, which is great. I think this is astonishing. And let me start with a caveat. I'm not a licensed polygraph examiner, but I do own and operate 2 professional grade polygraph systems. And the systems that I own are proven to be over 90% accurate. They included a lot of advanced metrics like EEG and brainwave mapping and something called pupillometry, which is the micro pupil measurements, down to, I think, the 100th of a millimeter. So while I'm not certified under some standard law enforcement protocol, I'm not speaking from ignorance either. With that said, what's being described in this clip, if it's true, is idiotic, stupid. The subject says he was given a polygraph and that the first question
Like it
asked
is,
was,
Chase.
did you kill the kids? Not only is that an absurd question to open with, it flies in the face of every basic principle of polygraph procedure. Any examiner with minimal training knows you begin with some control questions, neutral, verifiable, emotionally irrelevant. We establish some kind of baseline. And I think even more revealing than that was the subject, this guy, says all the questions were about the kids being dead and not missing. That frames the entire polygraph examination around an assumption of death, not disappearance. And what this does, it anchors that guy into a conclusion that he might not share, which makes him pass the test. And it's not just crappy interviewing, it's potentially contaminating the entire investigation. So if this is really, and maybe it's not, but if this is how law enforcement ran the test, they not only compromised the results, they showed the subject, this guy, their entire hand. and possibly gave him a roadmap for denial. This is not how you run an interrogation, and it's sure as hell not how you run a polygraph. And right after he says, I was nervous, especially around the first question they asked, which was, did you kill Lily and Jack? We get that kind of behavioral spike. And first there's fidgeting, and it's not casual. It's like a pressure release valve. The system's dumping this tension out. And this, the second that this thing gets airtime, and I don't think it's recall. I think he's reliving this, and we see that stress. Then we see a tongue jut, and this is a classic rejection or regret cue here, and it lands after the quote, which matters. He's not rejecting the memory. He's reacting to his own words. And that's called post-statement leakage, and it's gold right here. It's perfect, textbook. And then the almost sort of lip licking that's going on. His body wants to self-soothe, but I think he cuts it off. I'm not sure. But there's definitely some internal conflict. But if you put all this together, this trio might look like some kind of confirmation of guilt. I don't think it is. But I do think it's a strong congruence cluster for some kind of internal conflict around the statement, that question that he got asked. That's all I got.
I was thinking about that too for the polygraph, but I'm thinking maybe what they did was, since he's thinking the way he is in an analytical fashion, when they ask questions, so where are you from? What's your name? You go through the basics you go through, and you sort of talk to him for a little while.
Awesome.
Then they may have messed up and said, all right, well, let's get started. They wouldn't say that, but maybe he got a feeling they got started when they asked that question.
Maybe. But if they still centered it around them being dead, idiots.
That's true.
Yeah. It's a bad framing, which is why I wonder that, you know, what seems to be his issue for me in not being able to want to frame it in that way, that he's rejecting that framing. My assumption was, because I got the same sense, it's like, why are they starting with that question?
Right.
My assumption is he doesn't remember that bit. He didn't even know that was part of it.
Exactly.
And people that show
It's an assumption.
People that show this level of stress over an interview, remember, limbic thought is going to take over their thinking brain, and their ability to recall the actual details is going to be very difficult, because it was high duress that put that protein buildup in ops guy's mouth. It was not, casual, call you a name, poke you a little bit. It was really, really aggressive stuff.
And I had wondered that too, if he didn't realize, or, to him, that whole polygraph didn't start until those questions were started. And I found it hard to believe as well that it all was around the kids being unalived. But again, because we know that Daniel is not truthful, we don't, if they don't know that. They have no idea that, Daniel's habitual and lying. All of us that have followed this from the beginning up until now and have read all, listened to all the interviews, read all the texts, him on Dolly, all of that stuff, we know that he's not truthful. They don't know that. So for us, we would just, myself, in my opinion, think, okay, well, is Daniel just again being untruthful? That's possible. Or maybe all of that is so. Who knows? And if that is so, I agree with Chase 100% that that's some pretty crappy way of doing a polygraph. But the RCMP are known for their polygraphing techniques. In fact, that's why I found it so hilarious when Daniel had said that they told him that the polygraph could not be done. They had to find somebody, because that's what the RCMP are known for. In fact, in order to get into the RCMP, you have to be polygraphed. That's part of the process of acceptance into RCMP. They polygraph you. They probably do that in the FBI too. I don't know, but that's part of what they do. I do think he didn't realize it started before that question. Yeah, I had kind of wondered that too. Or to him, he didn't know, or he did know and just thought that that's irrelevant, because that's just, are your eyes blue, what's your name, and then the real show starts when they ask that very first question, pertaining to the case, is what he was meaning. So yeah, I kind of think that too. Yeah. And some people just aren't as detailed. I could kind of picture my husband saying something like that. Now, where I'm so detailed, I would be like, "Oh, they asked me this leading up to the," like, I would be so detailed that, that would probably take the first hour of the interview for me, but yeah. So, I'm just gonna skip over where they repeat that stuff again, because they always repeat and then go to the next segment. 2, because we're on 3 now.
Did you take them somewhere? Could
No.
they be somewhere? When did you find out the result of your test?
Immediately right after.
What did they say to you?
You did a good job. You passed.
And how did that feel?
Good.
And did you feel that there was any further suspicion on you after that point, or was that sort of conclusive?
No, that was really when I seen the turning point for it's starting to taper off with investigators.
Do you know if Malaya has taken one?
I don't know if I can say it, but I will anyway. Yes, she did take one.
Okay, she took one. Do you know the result?
No. IRCP wouldn't let tell me I asked.
You said you feel like everyone in the world wants to know what happened to Lily and Jack.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think this is getting so much attention?
Well, just the mysterious and nature of everything and how strange everything is. The IRCP, they have to keep a tight lip on everything, but there's a lot more that meets the eye with the case.
Is there something that you think the public doesn't know that you can share, that you want the public to know?
That's a hard one because I don't want to impede the investigation in any way. It is still a missing persons investigation. It hasn't pivoted to any type of criminal investigation. But the kids were seen the day before. I know a lot of people didn't know that. I still see a lot of stuff online that the kids could have been missing for days. They were out of school for days, and they were seen in the Glasgow area on camera the day before this appearance in the afternoon.
Where was that?
I don't know if I can say that, but it was near the Highland Square Mall.
Was it with you?
It was with me, Malaya, and Meadow, and Lilly&Jack were there too.
And are the police aware of that?
The police were aware of that since.
Do they have that video?
Yes, they do. I also talked to my coworker in the parking lot as well, and he verified that with investigators as well. So for all the speculation, they were gone days ahead of time, or they were seen the afternoon on camera before the disappearance.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
So you've heard me say it 5 bazillion times since our second video on the behavior panel. Let's look for what's missing first. And here's why. If you look at this clip again, all of the discussion has been self-centered. He discusses all the details of the case to clarify, not to seek return.
Boom. See, Chase is my favorite too. Kimmer. Yeah, and Chase is really hitting some stuff. He's picking up on some stuff that we already know.
Of the kids. He talks about people wanting to know what happened instead of getting them home. He makes no plea for their return, and no desire is visible on my end for people to help find them. There's no urgency other than his discussion about his own emotions during the polygraph exam.
Exactly.
This could be a bunch of hallmarks of having accepted the fact that they might be deceased, but I'm not totally convinced. But I will say there's enough time to go through that grief process, the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. This is called the Kubler-Ross grief cycle, but there was enough time there.
But we know that Daniel has made it very clear that he believes the kids are still alive. Malaya had them kidnapped and taken away somewhere. Well, we know where they say, and I'm not even going to say it because it's completely insulting to that community and to drag them into it. And they've got everybody drug into it now, but the friggin' kitchen sink and the mop. It's ridiculous. But anyways, Chase doesn't know what we know, right? So we know it's not because of going through the stages of grief. It's the other.
There are a few stress indicators here, and they're here in this clip, but they're not any around guilt questions and responses. And in the ones that are present here, they don't occur in clusters. And not every human's going to spill out behavior that screams the truth. The questions are, and the setting are critically important. And so far, there's no direct line of questioning to get involvement of guilt involved. There is a strong tongue jut again when he says Lily and Jack. So it's the second time that we've seen a strong tongue jut in relation to the mention of these two children. And I'm wondering now if we're seeing a baseline stress response that we need to mentally catalog and keep an eye out for it. But this video, number 3, which is our third video, was my indicator we're probably dealing with somebody who is unique on the neurology spectrum here.
Definitely.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, really, really interesting. Okay, so
Which doesn't mean he's innocent of anything, but he would definitely be harder to read, and it would definitely be confusing to people trying to understand him. Yeah.
so still very low energy. Feet are still crossed, no change there. There's a great sense of resignation, I would say, in that energy. There's maybe some Nova Scotianness to it as well, but there's a great sense of resignation. Just as you say, Chase, that resignation could be past the whole grief cycle. And also that grief cycle doesn't necessarily show up in the order that it's often described in. You can jump from moments and you can jump back again. And you could even have anger with the kids. Of course, it makes no sense to us here because we're not going through the grief. But if you have been through that grief, you can often feel anger towards the victim of a grievous moment. So there's all kinds of things that can happen there that won't seem, from an outside viewer's point of view, you may not be able to work out why would somebody feel this at this moment. Also, Chase, for my money, in order to get round to going, hey, if you see the kids, here's what they look like, and he'd have to go against the line of questioning of this interviewer. And is he the kind of person that would take control of this interview?
Yeah.
Like you and I, maybe all of us here, maybe we would, maybe he won't and he doesn't. So
I just want to pause for a second. Okay, so again, all of us that have been following this know that Daniel has no problem taking control as he is doing in chats and of this whole what direction this should be going in and the narrative of all of this. But I want to, before I forget, so neither Daniel or Malaya have never really pled for the kids to be home. And I agree. And I want to stop and say this now before I forget, because I had this in my notes during my last live. And when I went and looked at all my notes at the end, it was the only thing I forgot to touch on. And it was something I really wanted to touch on. And it's sad, but I just want to touch on it. So when he was on Dolly, Daniel on Dolly had talked about Malaya asking for the children's 2 stuffed animals, their pictures, and their birth certificates. And he had also said this on the news, okay? So it's actually him on the news speaking about it as well. So it's twice that he talked about that. And this just breaks my heart to say this, but this is another one of the big clues to me that made the light bulb go off, and I clued in that for Malaya. So for a mother to ask for those things, okay? So the kids' 2 favorite stuffed toys, their school pictures, and their birth certificates. Can you think of anything else that might be besides what the narrative Daniel is trying to push? That these were things that Malaya wanted because she had them taken and whisked off to another country? I mean, I know what that is. I know exactly what that is. Anybody else? Anybody else ever lost a child? Or had a friend who lost a child? Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about, Kimmer. And I'm sorry, guys. I know it's sad to think that way. But I had a friend. She's now, yeah, you know where I'm going with it. And Lord Kissrick, she knows exactly where the kids are. Well, I'll tell you. So I had a friend, and I say had because she's now passed away as well. But when her little boy was 5, he was walking home from school with his older sister, and he got away from his sister, and he got hit by a car, and he died. And my friend had his little box, and in that box, she had his favorite toy, his birth certificate, his pictures, his last pictures, his hockey jersey. Okay, that's what those things are. So, and I could be totally wrong, but in my opinion, knowing that, when I hear that Malaya asked for those things, to me, that's what I hear her asking for. It's something that, and especially when it's a child, like people lose moms and dads too, and they'll keep those sentimental things, and it's a sentimental box of those things, those last things that you have of that person, exactly, the mementos. And especially for a child. And because when a parent loses, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. Now, my friend who lost her little boy, she unalived herself, like down the road. But you can lose a parent, you can lose a dog, you can lose anything. It's not like losing a child. That's you know? And so she took that box out every year on the anniversary of his death, and she would go through those things every year. Um, so when I hear that, that's what I hear. I don't hear that Malaya asked for things so that she could take the kids into a different country, as Daniel's narrative, that he wants to push. And, I don't even know that. I don't even think he gets why she would ask for those things. Like, he would even think that way. Like, I don't think that it's like he's thinking, oh, she's asking for these things because she thinks the kids are unalived and she wants these mementos. I don't even think he gets that. Like, I think he's just happy that he has that to use as a, look at this, look what she asked for, that, and he can use that to his benefit to say that she's trying to take them off into another country. I don't even think he's cluing into what he's saying, that, to others, they would be thinking, okay, well, she must think her children are not here on earth anymore if she's asking for those things, because those are the things that a parent usually wants of their children when they're not here anymore. That's all you have left of them. That's it. Is that little box with those things in it. That's all you have now. I do know parents that have lost their children. Most marriages don't last either. Exactly. No, they don't. It's sad all around. You're right. You're right. It's even the best of marriages sometimes don't make it through. Yeah. So anyways, before I forgot, I just wanted to touch on that again. And so when, I think about Malaya not being out there fighting for the children, I think Malaya is fighting for the children, but in a different way, because, and again, in my opinion, I think there's things that we don't know, that law enforcement know, that she knows, and that's why she has to stay quiet and hidden. And um and I think it's more of the justice side of it that she's fighting for, and she's allowing, the RCMP to do what they need to do to get this justice. And that's in my opinion. And that's just because of all those little things that caused my light bulb to go off. And that was one of them. The lying with Daniel, that was a big one. And them finding a blanket, and the Lily's blanket, and him lying about it and saying, him trying to take control of all those situations. And I'm just picturing in my head, like, them coming with this blanket, and then him, nope, that's not Lily's. And then Malaya finding out, and Malaya saying, yes, that is Lily's. Like, I mean, I can't imagine, like, if my husband's trying to convince others here, law enforcement and the ground search and rescue, that's not Lily's blanket. And here I'm saying it is Lily's blanket. And of course she would know, I'm sorry, but the mums know more than the dads. No matter how much he wants to push the narrative that he did everything for the kids and she did nothing. All of that is just, it put my light bulb off. And anyways, that's all in my opinion, of course.
So there's a lot of possibilities here. Chase, the biggest thing on my mind at the moment is you are wearing a watch that I've not seen you wear before. It's the Omega Swatch Mission to the Moon watch. It's a lovely watch.
How the shit did you know that?
Because that's just, I pick up on these things. And it's a lovely watch. And there are some people out, it's a beautiful watch. There are some people out there who think that Swatch made a bad move, a grievous move doing this. I'm one of the people who think it was a wonderful move that they made. It's a particularly nice watch. I wish I had one myself, but I mean, I would love the whole collection.
They've got all the planets, I think, but this was a Father's Day gift. So,
really?
Nice.
Well, that's why I was going to say, how come I've not seen that before? What an absolutely wonderful Father's Day gift. I can't think of a better Father's Day gift. It's lovely. Lovely. Nice.
Thanks.
Kids, nice watch that you got, Dad. Nice watch. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, there's a whole lot going on in this one. I agree with you. And to be able to, even if it's not about the grief cycle, to be able to stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, the kids, takes a certain amount of social awareness. I don't think this guy has it. I don't think he's got the to your point, he's not the person that interjects and say, wait a minute, hold on, back off. It's interesting to watch him. That one of the things we know is when a person gets to that point, they got protein in the sides of their mouth, licking their lips is not really a big deal because you constantly want that out of your mouth. It's a weird feeling. If you had gone through it, you'd feel all that stuff building up. It kind of makes you crazy. But the tongue jut is still there. And the tongue jut, when he talks about the children, surely looks like some kind of disapproval or something going like that. When he says they told him you did a good job and you passed, for the first time we see real pleasure. He looks pleased with himself, except for he smiles big. And there's that one little quick up in the left side of his face that makes me think there's some contempt. So if this questioner were a little bit more adept, she could have asked a more complex question and gotten a different answer. Like, did you feel like they were thorough enough? Would you want them to go harder on someone else other than the parents? And you'd get a different answer because he's very literal to this point. There's good eye accessing a couple of times in this, but a really good one when he's asked about Malia and whether she's taken a lie detector or not. We watch his eyes go up to his right and see a little stress and then come back. There's no deception. He comes back and he tells them, yeah, and his whole body is nodding. Well, by the way, when he's pleased about this thing, his whole body is nodding. And then when he's talking about her and when she took the lie detector, it's the same thing. His whole body is nodding. It's really interesting because it's almost childlike in its exuberance of doing well on the poly. Now, whether they told him that or not, maybe he's just a good bullshitter and he got past me and I don't see it. But I don't think so. I think that there's more.
Well, we know that he's a bullshitter. We know that.
To this case, when he says that there's more to this case than meets the eye, he also does that same nodding, which makes me think he knows something he's not telling us. He can't tell us. Then she asks about something you know you can share. He goes right back to that same eye accessing point, the same thing he did with Malia, and he looks stressed and he comes back down and he doesn't answer. Then he goes into this is still a missing person case. It hasn't pivoted. That's interesting language. That means he knows that something's bigger than we know. And there's an opportunity to tear that little piece, that little statement to pieces using good questions, slice it and feed it back to him. Why does that matter that it's not still being treated that way? What do you mean by still? 2 kids are missing. What more could there be? Those are 3 questions I would have followed up and would have gotten very literal with him because we know he answers literal questions really, really well. But then when he's asked where the kids were, he's back to that same IX-SNQ. He goes for the 3rd time. And associated with the facts, he shouldn't say something. He does say it, 2 of them. So he doesn't tell us something. He tells us about Malia. He tells us about the fact that the kids were at the location with him. And he goes to the same eye-accessing place. And when they're asking him that 3rd time, and he doesn't give us information, it means he's holding something back that he considers valuable. And then we watch him doing the double shoulder shrugs when he's doing the coworker validated kids with him. I think what we're seeing here is he's telling us everything he knows, and he's holding back the one thing that is important that he's been told he can't. This makes me believe him even more, even though I do believe he is, you put it pretty well there, Chase, he's pretty unique neurologically. I think he's not like me neurologically. So asking questions the way that he understands the questions is a powerful tool. And I don't think we see that in this questionnaire. Scott, what do you got?
Okay, you guys have covered most everything, but I'll go over lightly some of the same things, but my take on them. Like when we're talking about when he answers that question, you did good, you passed. When he said that, I think that emotion is he's proud. It's almost like he's accomplished something. If you're good at sports and didn't know it, like you made a touchdown or a goal or whatever, I think that's what that looks like. Like he's proud of having done that. So that lets me know he wasn't worried about that in the sense that we would be worried about it. You know, I don't think he was worried about it from being thought of as guilty, just that he was going to do well on that test. So that sort of leans toward the neurodivergent situation we've been talking about as well. And after he says the police were aware, when he's talking about the children being seen near the mall, he does this hard lip grip after that. And I think that's him hoping that he didn't say too much, because I agree with you, Greg. He's hiding or he's holding something in. Don't know if he's hiding it, but they've said, don't say anything about this. Don't say anything about that. Don't say anything about this, for whatever reason. They may not want. There are situations where you don't want to give out information like that, so somebody can make their plan that if they've done something to the kids and they've got, well, here's what I did that day, they won't add. So we went by the mall as well and saw so and so and so and so. Then we went back on this path they were down. Tons of reasons why you wouldn't want to let that information out. So I think he's got some important information, and I think he's holding back. And so that's where I'll leave it there. What are you going to say, Chase? You were going to say something.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good.
I more agree with what Chase said, and I usually do. But it's just more about Daniel, and we already know that anyways. And I shouldn't say he's a good BSer, like Greg said, but we know he is a BSer. His story's changed many, 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 many times. Too many times to count.
On camera before the disappearance.
How often are they in touch with you?
Investigators now, I'd say maybe once every 5 days. And usually I'm the one who calls or messages them.
And how has that changed over the course of the 6 weeks?
Well, from the beginning, it was almost daily, tapering off to where it's only like once every 5 days now.
And how do you feel about that?
It's good. It's good and bad. I mean, I like to talk to them in person about any little small details I come up with or anything I can try to bring to their attention, which may help the investigation. So I don't get to see them often. So it's always over phone or messaging, and it's hard to really convey what you want to say when you're not in person. But then I also know the eye's not on me. The investigators don't see me as part of the disappearance.
How do you know that?
Well, when you're going from daily to tapering off every 5 days, I mean, I already gave them everything on my phone. I'm the one who originally said, here, take my phone. We'll go through all my banking information. We'll go through all my stuff on my GPS from Google.
And you were offering all that up right
Yeah,
from the
I
beginning.
offered everything.
And why were you doing that?
To show them that I want to get the investigation moving. I know I have nothing to do with any of it. A lot of speculation is you killed the kids. Was come out and say it straight as it is.
What do you think when you read that?
It's a lot of nonsense, obviously. I know the truth. I didn't kill Lily and Jack. And I just think a lot of people online they're seeking drama. That's the main thing. Everybody's allowed their own opinion, like I said before, but it's hard on the people that were actually there and missing the children. Still haven't got to see any of my kids, including Lily and Jack. And that's been really tough, going from a family of 7, including my other 2 kids that live in Halifax now. Going from a family of 7 in the blink of an eye, your family's ripped apart and you're left alone.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
So there's one thing here, and I'll just do this one thing. His willingness to hand over his phone early in the case and framing it verbally as helping the investigation. That's a strong behavioral indicator of cooperation. And on the surface, that's very good. But I just want you to watch what happens next. He denies killing the children flat out. But the thing here is, no one asked him if he did.
Exactly.
And this is where you need to pause.
Truth with lies.
And listen with some precision here. The interview and the overall investigation at this stage centers around this disappearance, not confirmed harm, not murder. And he may be borrowing from a suggestion from the polygraph examiner. So when In other cases, and maybe in this case, when somebody jumps to a murder denial unprompted, it can mean one of two things. Number one, they've already reframed the event in their mind, consciously or unconsciously, around death. Or two, they're answering a question that nobody asked. And that should always, always raise an eyebrow.
Yep.
So now, what didn't he say? What's missing? He didn't follow up with, and I had nothing to do with them disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't touch the core accusation. And that's called strategic denial in most books. When you're looking through this, it's denying something that's technically true and skipping the thing that's damning. And I've got a cold, if you're wondering why my voice sounds weird right now. But again, this whole interview drifts. The questions are soft. The emotional tone stays calm. And I think somehow in a sit down about two missing children, no one asks anything that would make a guilty person sweat. Nobody. And that's the real issue to me here.
Mm-hmm.
And truth tellers usually say stuff like, you can ask anyone, or I want to prove I didn't do this. Guilty people usually speak in isolation. I didn't do it. Full stop. And this is called excluding a social frame. Like, go ask Tommy, he was with me, or whatever. But I find it bizarre that this is an interview with a person about missing children, and no one is asking about missing children.
Yep.
It's ridiculous to me. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, a couple of
It is, but what do RCMP know that we don't know, and they're not letting Daniel know? Yeah.
really good points for him in here too, though. Let me walk through a couple of those. He starts off, he's loosened up. If you notice, he's punctuating his brain's thoughts with his head, or illustrating with his head specific words and phrases, as Scott would say. His eyes are accessing to his right, but to a different area than they were before. So earlier it was all visual stuff, and now it's more auditory. As he's answering the questions about, it was once in 5 days. Now, the other piece is, as you pay attention to him, he's got a brow rise, which he doesn't have many, as he says, I'm usually the one that calls them, with the same really quick head nod. Yeah, look, I'm usually one that calls them. The interesting piece is handing over your phone. I always love the fact people think they hand over their phone, then it's over. No, once you sign that document that says you're giving them access to your phone, that doesn't mean it's over. That means they're going to get what they get and keep checking. So it's interesting that people sometimes will think they've bypassed and then go put more information. There's fear in his face, really good fear. His eyes come back. He says in the beginning it was almost daily. I think he's almost childlike in the way he approaches some of his nonverbal communication. Then he becomes more communicative. His head starts moving around a lot more. And then here's the best thing that happens for him in the entire video series we've seen to now. When he says it was good and bad because I was not being bugged anymore, but they were not getting information, he shows grief in his brow. It's mild, but there is a little horseshoe, a little start of a curve, not as pronounced as mine is, but I'm not sure he can do that. That's a great, great, great indicator, because it says he cares that they are getting information from him about these children that could change things, which for me is a good, good indicator. Now, up to now, I've said, I think he's neurodivergent some way. I still think that. He does a stressed throat clear as she asks, what do you think? And that's another good one, because he should, maybe this is all building up. Then eye accessing, as he says, the eye is not on me. He drops down to his right and down to his left. What that means is he's having some emotional feelings and some internal voice for what it means, back and forth and back and forth. You might call that looking for change in the floor, the same move. That it is very powerful. And then we see the first real emotion we see in the entire video. To your point, Chase, we don't see a lot of emotion or discussion of people and children. But when he starts to talk about all these children, all 7 members of the family, we do see emotion. That's a good sign. It means he realizes that something has fundamentally changed. Scott, what do you got?
All right. At first, when he says he's talking to the police a lot, like once a week, or once every 5 days or something at this point. But I think he says he was talking to him almost every day.
Yep.
I think maybe he was bugging the shit out of him. And they said, look, man, let's just do this once a week. Because maybe he was calling for 5. What about this? When how it is when there's something like that and somebody is concerned and they get up in their head and think, well, this could happen. And they'll say, well, this could happen. And you get this barrage of what could have happened during all that. I think maybe that's what happened. They tried to cool him out by being nice to him at the same time, because I think the minutia of that probably got old to them, wasting their time, which would make me think they might have knocked him out of the running already. So it could be wrong, but that's what I thought. Maybe they aren't looking at this guy anymore. So then when she says, what do you think about that when you read that? And about the people saying he did that, we hear him do this little thing with his voice, not a growl, not a clear. It's just this like that. I think that really bothered him. I think the whole idea of that bothers him. I think he's over it. He's just done it so many times, and he wants to say, I hate this and all that, but he's staying calm about it all. Then he eye blocks when he says, I didn't kill Lily and Jack. And this could be two things. It could be one of those things where a lot of people are going to say, well, he closed it. That's eye blocking. So he's lying when he's saying that. Well, you'll eye block when you're saying something or hearing something that you don't want to hear, or something you don't say, or something that bothers you, or something you really don't agree with. Like some kind of a joke you're hearing at work, people will block their eyes. If it's a dirty joke and there's people around, you wouldn't want to hear that. So I think this really bothers him. I don't think it's because he's being deceptive. I think it bothers him saying that, and bothers him hearing those things. But at the same time, he's reeling it in and being calm about it and not getting angry. That's what it looks like to me. So instead of being deceptive, I think it bothers him, and he's just not becoming angry about it or getting angry about it on the outside. Then he talks about people have their own opinion, and this is frustration that we see, and we see it all the time. This is with his legs, his arms, this little adapter there, and everything sort of moves at once when he talks about that. So, which is normal, because it's that little spike of, oh, that's uncomfortable for me. So, and then for some reason, he's been separated from the entire family. That part, again, kicks me back into something might be up here. So unless you have a situation where, like you do in narcissism, where the narcissist knocks out all your friends and everybody else in the family against you, maybe it's that kind of thing. I'm not saying his wife's a narcissist, but maybe there's something going on with the wife where she wants to point at him if he didn't do it. If somebody did it, I'm not saying she did. I haven't seen her. I haven't seen any videos on her. I don't know anything about her. But maybe that's a situation where the wife is knocking him out of those family situations to separate him and throw blame toward him. I don't know anything about any more than what we've seen in these videos. I'm just surmising something like that might be the reason, because so far I'm not seeing a lot of deception on this guy at all.
So we actually know it's the other way around. He's the one who's out there pointing the finger at her and saying those things about her.
All. So I can't imagine why they do that. So we're sort of seeing the combination of behavior and body language of somebody who could be deceptive and somebody who could be innocent. It's almost riding the line there in a lot of ways, for me anyway, when I'm looking at it like that. All right, is that everybody?
No.
Yep.
Mark?
Oh,
Yeah. Look, here's the way I see it. I think he's in an interview here, which is all about and focused on him being innocent of murder. It's the way the questioning is going. And you're right, Chase, it should be an interview about two missing kids, but it isn't. Everything's focused on, and he's complying with that. He's complying with the frame of this interview. I think you're right, Scott, that he actually gets quite irritated, frustrated, and angry around this idea of, what did you think when you read that you killed the kids? He's angry and he wants this to stop. And I think that's his pleasure in this being over now. From his point of view, it's over that he's in the frame for this, but the interviewer hasn't shifted the frame to, okay, so now we're over with that. Let's what do you think? Where do you think they are? What do you think happened? The frame doesn't shift. Now, Greg, I mean, I've not watched the whole interview. Is it much longer than this? Or
No,
this
there's
is
only
pretty
one
much
other
it?
only one other interchange I took out about video. That's about it.
Right. So in my view, it's not a great interview because it doesn't set him up in any way. It sets him up to try and argue that he has no guilt. You know, Greg, well, you got a thought?
Yeah, I'll tell you that when I talked to Sadie, I watched a very short clip and we covered, and I said, look, I would go and check water because he used some really awkward word patterning, even for him. And I would say now, look, if this guy's willing to come on, I'd love to talk for us to talk to him if you come on, because he's showing a whole different vision than he had in that 1 minute little clip.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Reach out to them, Daniel.
From my point of view, this still looks good. You're right. What would it look like if the questions were now more pointed towards, okay, so what's happened to them? I think he's frustrated at the whole frame of they've been murdered. I don't know whether he particularly accepts that as the full extent of the possibilities for them. I think it feels like he's gone through grief and has accepted he's unlikely to see them, but I'm not sure he's accepted that they're murdered at this point. Anyway, and that's just conjecture from the information that I see here. Anyway, fascinating.
That's a three-way tie. Well, I don't know, Chase. That landed there at the end. I'll give you that. Nicely done.
How often are they in touch with you?
Investigators now, I'd say
Oh, did I miss that? That was 4 we did. Oh, I guess I missed one.
I'll give you that. Nicely done.
How often are they in touch with you?
I'll give you that. Nicely done.
How often are they in touch with you?
investigators now, I'd say maybe once every 5 days. And left alone.
I think this is one of the most interesting ones we've done so far. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, because I walk away from this going, okay, not a lot to see here. I think the guy's fine. I think it's okay. But the interview is not a great one. Okay, so I'd like to see more, with more focus on more focus on a lot of the stuff we talked about, but especially from my point of view, like, what do you think happened then? What do you think happened? Because we know you don't think it was you, and we know that you think there's a lot of evidence that says it's nothing to do with you. Yeah, I get that. Okay, so then what happened? It would be my line of thinking and questioning. Chase, what do you think?
Yeah. A lot of children go missing, and God bless these kids. Hope they're okay and safe somewhere. But we have somehow normalized child disappearances when they happen at scale. And there's thousands per year there. And we've taught ourselves, maybe don't look too closely. And we hear agencies kind of hide behind the no evidence of abduction thing. And we kind of keep strolling. So there's a couple of things I just want to share here as a PSA. Unusual signs of trafficking that you will never hear anywhere else. The first one is unusual language for their age. Phrases that you hear are like, I'm not allowed to say, or we just moved here, in kind of a robotic tone that sounds really scripted. That's a big one. And if you hear visible hesitation when they're offered simple choices, like if you ask, do you want chocolate or vanilla? and they have confusion and they look up at somebody that they're with, a lack of agency bleeds into the small stuff. And that's what you're seeing here. And finally, just perfect behavior and dead eyes. Like all the behavior looks normal, but the eyes are hollow or dead. And actually, I'll give you one question that you can ask. If you're ever curious to unlock the truth of one of these people, hey, what's your teacher's name? That's it. No threat, no pressure, just a question that every kid can answer in 1 second, unless they can't. And if they can, if they pause, they look confused, or they glance at an adult for some kind of guidance, that's a big deal. And this one's quiet enough to be safe, and I think it's sharp enough to break that wall. And we need better tools and better instincts for this kind of stuff. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, Chase, brilliant one question. That's a brilliant thing to remember when you're dealing with children, because that is a big part of their life. So a couple of things. Marginalized people behave in marginal ways, and this guy's pretty marginalized. Look at how he's living. Look at that. I don't know what he does for a living. Add to that this whole complexity of what I think is a neurodivergent personality. So how he responds to authority, how he responds in any situation is going to be different maybe than yours would be. And you have to adjust to that when you're questioning. Part of the problem we see here is this is a straight line question that now is making it about him being the murderer. To your point, Mark, whether he believes they're murdered, even if he does believe they're murdered, if he doesn't believe he's the guy, that creates a whole new grief cycle and all of those things. And, we can only see what we can see. Again, I would love, Mr. Martell, you're welcome to come. We'll talk to you. We'll grill the hell out of you. When you leave us, people will believe you if you're telling the truth. If not, it's not a good choice to come on. But what I would say is this guy accessed information consistently 3 times and then only divulged twice and said, I don't think I can answer that. That's consistency. And then look at that grief muscle pop when he says it's good and bad. There would be no grief muscle if I'm allowed to get away from the cops and I hurt these children. So I think it's a really powerful telling thing. And I think I'll look forward to seeing more from him, because if he gets in front of the camera more and gets asked the hard questions, it should help him and maybe help find these children. These are babies. Scott, what do you got?
Agreed. Daniel,
And since we're
if
talking
you
about
hear it,
trafficking,
reach out.
it could be a child, or it could be a girl who's almost an adult, or a boy at the same time. And there's a sign you can look for if they're aware of this sign. And if you see somebody take their thumb and put it right there, then cover their hand with it like that, and they may do it 2 or 3 times. It may be behind their back. It may be in the front. They may be sitting there. They may be in a car, and you drive by and you'll see that. That's when you call the cops.
Take care, Kimmer. Thanks for coming. And I'll see you again. I'm hoping to come back on tomorrow to go over the text messages. I'm not going to have time today anyways, and I want to take my time going through them and take a really good look at some contradictions and things that Daniel has said, and take a really good look at what Malaya has said. So if you're here tomorrow, I will see you then. Take care.
Cops right then. Don't mess around, because something's up. That's the international sign for I need help. So don't forget, it's just this here. This thumb goes on the inside. And if you're somebody young watching this and you have a problem, do that. You do the same thing. And that'll get you help as quick as it can get to you.
Good
That's the
education.
sign everybody should know. We should make everybody aware of. All right, fellas, thanks for another good one, and we'll see you next time.
So guys, again, that is the oh my god, now I forgot the name of them. And it's like one of my favorite shows. The Behavior Panel, the Behavior Panel. I will put the name of them in the description box, as well as Sadie from the Prime Minister of Behavior. She is one of their researchers, and she is from Nova Scotia, from Halifax. And I think it would be awesome if Daniel did reach out to them. Those are the guys that you would want to speak to, for sure. Absolutely. To get the story out there. And like he said, though, they certainly, won't be easy peasy on you. They would ask some hard questions, but Daniel, if you see their video or you see my video, those are the guys you'd want to reach out to for sure. So we're not going to have time today to go over the text messages, and I do want to go over those, and I want to take my time. I don't want it to be rushed. We're going to take a close look at. I have everything from Daniel. I have everything from Dolly's show that he said. I have it all cropped and in sequences of 4, and from It's a Criming Shame. I have everything that he said there, and I have everything from Alea. So, and I have it all ready to go. It's all in order, and we're gonna take a look at that. So hopefully tomorrow. I'm hoping for tomorrow, but if not, it'll be the day after. But I'm thinking tomorrow. So take care, everyone. Lots of love, lots of positive vibes. Thank you so much for coming to the live stream or clicking on this video. Don't forget to press the like. Don't forget to share. And if you wish to subscribe. And remember, this is about Lily and Jack, whether, it be to locate them, to bring them back home, or for justice, or all 3. It's about them, okay? And they're still missing. And this is just a very confusing story. And remember, there is a $150,000 reward out there now. I heard somebody say it's up to 160. I'll have to check on that. But as far as I know, 150. And yeah, so have a great day, guys. Here comes the little cutie bum. Take care.